This is Siclen Podcast, a new series where we talk with hobbyists, creators,
and other board gaming industry insiders about something we all love so much.
and today we have quite a special guest.
Lincoln Hope, the game bard, an actor, improv teacher, and content creator.
We had a conversation about board games, accessibility in board games, and acting. Hope you will like it. So, how good are you at bluffing, actually?
It depends. Bluffing on the spot, I'm not very good. If I can plan for my bluff, I'm very good.
How often do you bluff in board games?
We don't play a lot of bluffing games, but they're really fun. And the problem is my wife kind of knows when I'm bluffing, so I've had to find some ways around that. So I try to make it look like, so I've gotten better. I've definitely gotten better.
So you're not the best liar, yeah?
Yes, correct. It's a fun mechanic, but some of us are not as good at it.
And what kind of board games is your favorite?
If not bluffing.
I love Euro games quite a bit. Probably my favorite, victory point system. There's been so many great Euro games. Now they do everything. Like you can get a game that's a Euro game, but it also has some combat. It also has area control. It also has bluffing. There's some really, really great stuff out there.
This is the era of eclectics,
Yes.
and this is what we really like, and this is what we try to combine in our games, to be honest. And by the way, speaking of just eclectics, you successfully combine several images, public images. So how do they match?
It's really interesting. So I'm an actor and I've been in a lot of movies and TV shows. And so the whole board game content generation is new for me. So every now and then I'll contact a publisher and they'll say, "You look really familiar." And I usually don't say, well, maybe you saw me in something, because whenever I say that, they're like, "No, I don't think so." But it's very interesting because a lot of people feel like they've seen me before on something, or they're like, "You're really familiar." And so I'm always wondering, like, did you see me? Did you see my board game content, or did you see a movie or a TV show I was in?
Yeah.
And so that familiarity, people kind of feel like they know me, which is really good because, it makes it easier to connect with people when there's already a feeling of, I think I know you,
Like a guy next door.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's
Yes.
a
I also
good feeling,
play board
actually.
games with some of my actor friends, so that's quite fun. So that everything meets, and I use my acting skills in a lot of my reels. So I do some comedy reels, in addition to just straight board game reviews and content. So it's a fun mix.
Interesting. And have you ever brought board games to film sets? How do actors feel about board games in general?
That's a great question. So usually on set, you're very separated. Like you'll have your own trailer or little room somewhere. So that's usually, if I bring a board game that I'm trying to learn, I'll bring it there. So usually other people don't see it, but I talk about board games, and most people are like, "Oh, that's interesting." Like the game of life or Operation.
Oh, yeah.
Is it a facial expression they usually have? Just
Right.
thinking
Like they
of-
don't understand how someone could be so into a game like Monopoly. They're like, "I played that when I was a kid, but I kind of grew up." That's sometimes the feeling. So I have to explain, like, no, board games do everything. Like if there's a theme you can imagine, there's a board game that does it, which is really true these days and super fun, a really fun part of the hobby. How many different themes board games can cover.
I always say that if there is no board game that you like, probably you haven't found your one.
That's right.
It's just waiting somewhere for you. You just need some extra, I don't know. You just need an attempt or a reason to try. And sometimes there is no reason. and
Sometimes the reason is you came over to my house, so now you have to play a board game.
yeah, because you're locked here, yeah, and I have the keys.
Yeah, this sounds very familiar.
And there's so many great gateway games these days. We had, I don't know if you've heard of Panda Royale by Last Night Games. They make a dice game that, like, the box comes with like 100 dice. And the whole game is like you're just chucking dice and taking points. And so over the Christmas break, everyone in the family wanted to play it over and over, even the non-gamers. It's just, there's so many games that show people how fun games can be who didn't think games sounded fun, and then they're like, I like this. This is great. So that's pretty fun. That's a nice part of being an actor, is sharing with some of those friends on set, and actors and other people on crew about the games.
I read you are also an improv teacher.
That's
so
right.
do your improv skills help you in when you play, like in maybe tactical games or something like this?
Yeah, especially role-playing games. Like any game that has any kind of characters or voices or anything that you can bring to life a little bit. And actually, the improv skills are, however many skills I have at bluffing, they all come from my improv, because I'm not a good bluffer at all. But when I start acting, and I start using those, I become much, much better. It's just people like my wife who can see through it.
now I'm envious, actually.
You can always pretend to be a good bluffer. This is also like
That's right.
a challenge.
That's right. You can fake people out by pretending that you're bluffing when you're not.
Yeah, actually, my mom told me to become an actor, but I don't know. I never thought of it seriously, and now I'm kind of envious because I finally realized how I would benefit from that.
It's a really fun skill, and it's not just improv. Isn't just getting on stage. It enhances all of your creativity, like your ability to throw yourself into a world of a game, even without any role-playing skills, like the visualization skills that go into improv training, and all those kinds of things are really helpful. In fact, I teach improv. I have a course which we haven't specifically sent it out to board gamers yet, but that reminds me, I absolutely should try that, because there's so many interesting creative skills that go into both improv and board games. Now,
when you mentioned TTRPGs, I realized that's a perfect match.
It's all improv. It's the dungeon master or the game master is making stuff up. The players are making stuff up. It's all improv. There's just mechanics that kind of keep you on base. And of course, some groups play with more improv and role playing than others, and others play, very technically. But there's always room to improve your role playing skills with improv. That's for sure.
And do you play some role playing games? Sometimes or regularly?
Yes.
Do you have a group?
So I was on a Dungeons and Dragons show for a few years. There's like 100 episodes out there of our campaign. So that's actually what got me into board gaming. When I was a kid, I played like first or second edition of Dungeons and Dragons in the early 80s. So, loved that, and then stopped playing, and then came back recently. And I was like, this is really fun. I wonder what other board games are out there. When I was going into the store to look at Dungeons and Dragons books, I was like, there's hundreds of these things. Maybe I should check one out. And I was like, no, if I check out one of these board games, I'll probably love it and buy tons. And so I didn't for a few years, and that's exactly what happened. When I finally got a board game, I was like, this is amazing.
This is a wormhole, It's just
it's like the best wormhole in the universe.
And also, you are a gaming influencer, so you are naturally involved in the tabletop industry. So, what do you see as the main similarities and differences between the film and TV industry and the tabletop industry? Like one of them you have already mentioned, TTRPGs and improvisation skills, and probably there is something else.
It's really interesting. I mean, I never thought about it too much before, but like, you know, a studio that's making a TV show or a movie is kind of like the publisher, and the people who play the games are like the audience of a movie, right? So like you got your game players and your audience of a movie are kind of similar, and then you've got, you know, your actors in the movie as well, and that kind of bleeds over into maybe some influencers or people who are on camera telling us about games. But then the publisher, you know, there's so many people behind the scenes. When you pick up a game, you know, when you grab a game, you're just like, this is a great game. One person made it, you know, but that's never the case. Even if it's like a designer, an artist who's done it all, like the publisher and the play testers and the graphic designers, the people who do the rule book, it's the same way with the movie. There's like accountants, and there's people who hire the actors, and there's directors, producers, there's people who hold the lights and who hold the microphones. So there's so much behind the scenes that you don't see when you just pick up a game. You know, you pick up a game and you have no idea that some of these games are like 5, 6, 7, 2, 3 years in development. You just go and buy a game, right? You don't understand that. And
exactly.
Very much
so
like a movie.
We know that.
Yeah.
Of course, its scale is a bit different, but again, we see today's Kickstarter projects, and we see that we are not so sure anymore whether it's something very, very tiny.
Yeah, like these $600 all-in pledges, like I had no idea that was even possible. But you look, as soon as you're looking, it was like, I kind of want it all, but I don't have the money. You know, it's that kind of thing. But you're right. Like there's so many. They've gotten so good at adding on things that you really want that you just have to pay a little. Well, I could get the $35 game, but I could get the $100 version with all the wooden meeples, or I could get the $150 version with the painted wooden, you know.
Complicated decision making.
Yes.
This is actually what we spend. Probably we invest a third of our time designing a game in things like this.
Yeah. People don't realize that. They don't understand like how much goes into it, how much play testing, and how, because I'm designing games now too. I just started last year, and so like just every time I play test, you know, there's a tweak, you're changing something because someone didn't like it, and sometimes they were the only person who didn't like it, and sometimes nobody likes it. So it's you know, that play testing becomes really important and really informative, and most people don't know that. It's so interesting.
That's actually very interesting that you're designing games now. Probably anything you can share with us on that. Probably you can just unfold it, uncover it a little bit for us. What are you up
them
to?
In front of me. Yeah, I'm developing a roll and write game, which is pirate themed.
This is my favorite. It's my favorite genre. I love roll and writes.
Yeah, I love roll and writes too. And yeah, for me, there's something about all games, like the tactile nature, the touching things and moving pieces. And that's really special about the roll and writes, right? You're like not only just picking stuff, but you're making marks and you're filling stuff in. Like that just, there's a physical engagement that's just, it's a little special.
And the pirate theme feels like just a perfect match once again for the genre.
Yes.
And we can see that now the genre is flourishing. We could see Tend performing very successfully last year by IV Games. So just an incredible just an incredible number of backers.
It looks
on Kickstarter.
amazing, right? Yeah, I had
And
a
it
friend who
looks
was
awesome,
one of the
too.
first playtesters, or not playtester, the first reviewer and influencer that they sent it to, and he kept saying, "This is blowing my mind. This is crazy. There's like scratch off pads, and there's this and that, and it just looks beautiful."
Packed in a big box, which is also not that typical for roll and write.
Right.
So it inspires.
Right.
It inspires us, and who knows? Maybe we should also think about the the roll and write. So yeah,
I'm telling you every time
you
because
know.
I'm biased. So I love
That's
them too
why
much.
we haven't started yet. Yeah, because
Yeah, they're interesting because they can be so simple, but they can also be so complex, and then there's everything in the middle. So it's just a very interesting genre.
and so much has already been done. So it's like with trick-taking games, you would like to start with something, but then you play the games and you realize probably you're already too late. But you cannot stop yourself from doing that at night, at least for yourself. All right, not publishing, but I need to do that. This is another thing that I really like about the hobby, that home rules is not something for the community. It's something what designers practice themselves too, and creating stories at a table is priceless.
So true.
Yeah.
Well said.
Getting back from roll and writes to content. What is the most challenging part of creating board game content? Is there anything special you can highlight?
It's probably different for everybody, but for me, I'm a very creative person. And so the organization and the scheduling things and the keeping consistent with putting out content for me is kind of the hardest part, because I just love the games. I mean, even a game that isn't my favorite, it's so easy for me to find something I love about it. Even though sometimes it's just the simplicity of it, like it's just these simple mechanics that I don't necessarily want to play again, but I really enjoyed how simple it was. That's kind of fun for me. And that's probably one of the upsides, is getting to try out games that I probably wouldn't buy on my own, but getting to try them out and then thinking, whoa, I really do like this kind of game, or these guys did that genre better than I've ever seen. So that's kind of fun. It's also, I mean, growth is a challenge, and that goes again with the consistency. Like the more that, because I have my own Instagram and YouTube and TikTok channels, many of which, like my TikTok has 500,000 followers for me as an actor, but for my game channel, it's got like 1,300. So it's hard to find those connections. But it really is, for TikTok, I was doing it for years, and I've only been creating board game content for about a year. So it's consistency is a big thing, and unfortunately, that's hard for me.
And probably scaling also. You mentioned that one of your accounts, or your main account is way bigger than your board gaming account, and of course I believe audiences, even though they overlap, for sure there's still kind of different expectations, and run for different algorithms is a big challenge these days.
Very much.
Yeah.
It's just different. It's just different audiences. I'll always get, like, if I post something on my big channel, I'll get a few new followers to my board game account. But it's also like, you have to be careful. Like, do I want to post something that most of my followers aren't going to relate to, because that affects the algorithm and all that kind of stuff. So it's tough. It's a balancing act in some ways.
Balancing between who you are and what you have to deliver as a content creator is a big challenge for us as a studio as well. because we are also we have to squeeze into the algorithms of professional accounts, which are very limited, because we have to run ads from time to time, and they are not boosted naturally, organically, and because of that, and we want to deliver more information on our games. But on the other hand, we have to sell games too, because we are a publisher, and balancing between delivering interesting content and doing what is needed for sales is kind of a deal you have to make with yourself every day. If you just, when you want to stay, if you want to keep the flame in your eyes, it can be challenging sometimes.
This is another interesting crossover between the board game industry and the film industry. It's a strange mix of creative and finance. Like, you could put out like the most creative game in the world, but if you can't sell it, if you can't market it, you won't be successful. But you might enjoy it, you might love it, and you and your family may play it, but unless you can spend the marketing money to get it out to people, and it's the same, actors, a lot of actors would act for free. Writers love to write, but people have to get paid for what they're a professional at doing. So it's an interesting mix of money and creativity, which don't always go well together.
Especially when we're looking at the games, we see that it's just a tiny box, sometimes less and less frequently. But anyways, we see a tiny box with cute art, and it feels like there cannot be that much work behind it. But then you realize there was data analysis, the same all the same business processes which are behind anything else, and keeping creativity is complicated.
I do think that's where the influencers come in, and the people who are reviewing the content. Trust is an interesting thing too, because a lot of content creators are getting paid and some aren't, and it's all over the map. But strip that aside, and when you've got someone's video that you can watch who says, I love this game and here's why, then it becomes easier for someone to say, well, okay, I guess I'll spend $20 more than I was thinking because this person I trust loved it. And I love those kinds of things too. So that's kind of where some of that gap gets bridged, which is nice, because sometimes, a $90 game, not everyone wants to shell out $90 for a game unless they know they're going to love it. And then it's a whole different story. If I know I'm going to love it, I watch a playthrough, done. I want it. I'll buy the deluxe version. I'll spend $120 since it looks so good. It's interesting, right? It's an interesting mix of influencer and reviewer and kind of a middleman between marketing and advertising. But I think that, and I'm newer to it, but before I started creating board game content, a lot of those influencers and content creators really had a big hand in what games I was spending money on. And I'm grateful to them for that. I still do it. If I'm asked if I want a review copy of something, I only try to take things that I think I'm going to like, because I like to be a positive person, and it doesn't always work out that way. But so I'll look at a review if they're available. More and more, I'm getting games before they're published, but if it's available, I'll just take a quick look, or I'll look at the rule book, and I'll see, is this something I might like? And if I think, yeah, that looks great, then I'll get it. And I don't always love it as much as I thought I would, but usually I do. Usually, watching someone else's content gives me a really good idea of if I will like it. So I'm very grateful to people who are putting out content so that we know how to spend our money on games. It's a great, it's a good synergy, a good matching up of talents.
For our studio, there are 3 key principles that define our philosophy.
Ooh, I'm excited.
First one is, so we actually have it everywhere, and we really like to design all the games around it. The first one is that component quality should be very high.
Yeah, because we are also
good
like
components. I love
yes, we are tactile players too, so we value a lot this feeling of touching, quality like wooden tokens, good cardboard, good card material, textures. Like we pay a lot of attention to finishes on cards, to
Right.
how
And illustrations
Yes.
too, because illustrations are truly the soul of the game. So we value our illustrators very much, and without them, it's just a bunch of mechanisms.
They create the world and the feel and the look of the game, which is so important. I've played some great games with really bad art, and it's like, I wish it's a good game, but I wish the art was better because I'd play it more. But it's true. It makes a big difference. Yeah.
That's why we have so many remakes these days. And if I'm not a big fan of remakes in the video gaming industry, but here, knowing that 20 years ago there were not as much money in the industry of board games as today, it's just such a relief to see a new reimagination of another Euro game. Like a lot of Rainer Knizia games are reimagined these days, and this is incredible.
Yeah, and this helps the players who were not sure about playing it because of bad design. It helps them finally.
I'm not trying. I didn't
finally
try to
begin
say
playing.
that Rainer Knizia had bad designs. By the way,
Like not bad designs. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to say so, but not up to modern standards, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, a lot of those older games, they were just kind of, I don't know. It was a different time, right? Things didn't have to look as
Sure.
good.
There is some, authenticity in them too. Yeah, the vibe of the times, and I like to play some of those too. They give you the it's like a throwback to the
Nostalgia.
80s, to the 90s. It's just incredible. Yeah, but also seeing them being reimagined is a nice thing too. Yeah, and the second thing for us is a unique gaming experience. We don't like reskins of the games. We want to bring something new to this world, and we know that many indie publishers are passionate about it, and we do too. And the very last thing is immersion. We aim to create not just a product, but something alive, something that breathes. We call this universes. For example, our newest game, which is coming out hopefully later this year, is a deck building, pick up and deliver board game, and it is set in an original universe that we designed specifically for this game, and we even wrote a novel for that.
Oh, wow.
Which is probably a bit too much. We understand, but we cannot hold ourselves from doing something like this. And what are your priorities when choosing a game? So we named these 3 that we have: component quality, a unique gaming experience, and immersion. Sorry for this very
Long introduction.
I don't know if I can tell you in order, but I will tell you that those three are very high on my list. I often wish that component quality wasn't so high on my list so that I could more objectively talk about a game, but it's so high on my list. I mentioned it earlier. Like, if a game has a beautiful world and the components are fun to touch, like, I will play that 9 times out of 10 over a game that's better, that looks ugly, or doesn't have much physical interaction. So for me, that tactile nature is very much at the top of my list. And then again, the art draws us into the world, just like you mentioned earlier. The art really immerses you in the world. Mechanics are so important as well. And I mean, I wish I valued mechanics over far above the art and tactile nature. But if they're not there together, they're close. But mechanics are so important. Like, I love playing a game that has innovated. I love deck builders. I love them. I'll give just about any deck builder a chance because I just enjoy that. But it's really fun to play a deck builder, which I already know I'm going to like mostly, that does something different, or that throws something different, not just to be different, but with a mechanic that elevates the genre. Which is, why I don't know if you guys have played Dominion a lot.
Of
like
course.
The original deck builder. That's a game where there's been so many amazing innovations, so many great combinations, like Dune, the Dune Imperium series, Heat. I guess Heat is less of a deck builder, but there's just so many games that are great, but somehow the original Dominion is still worth playing. It's still so good. So, but since I love deck builders, if someone gives me a twist or puts it in a great world, like have you guys played Star Realms at all?
Star Realms, yeah.
Star Realms is great. One of the reasons I love it is because it was one of my very first gateway games. It was one of the first games that I played.
Very easy to learn.
It's easy to learn. It's easy to play. But they came out with Star Trek Star Realms, and I love Star Trek. So it was like, I know the game. It plays exactly the same, but I want to be in the Star Trek world. So yeah, that theme
has just gone better.
Yeah. Anything that can draw my imagination in and match the mechanics with the world is very special, because it's not as difficult to create a game with fun mechanics with some beautiful art tagged on, but when the art supports the mechanics and the mechanics support the world, that's more special to me. And those are the games that I tend to love when they mix like that.
Totally can relate to that.
Playtime is time is one of the biggest factors for me these days, which wasn't before publishers started sending me games. I was like, give me every game. And now it's like, is it under 2 hours? Is it under an hour? Like, I need to take that into consideration, because not only do I have to learn a long, complicated game and spend a lot of time doing that, I have to convince my wife and my kids to play so that we can test it at different player counts. And the longer a game and this is just me, this is just me.
I believe it's an industry standard these days that having shorter games, but you can play several times if it's a short but a very nice game. But if it's over 5 hours, it's very unlikely you're going to play it frequently. And publishers want games to be played, and players want to play their games, not to keep them on the shelf. Of course, there are some amazing exceptions and immortal games out there. Yeah, but the overall industry tends to shorten play time these days, and you
there's
just prove that.
Also a special category of games that are like 2.5 hours, but you can't believe it's been over an hour because the pace is so fast. Like Ark Nova isn't that long, but Ark Nova is one of those games where an hour and a half can go by and I'm like, what? That was an hour and a half? Or, just some of these other games that give a cinematic experience, or games where you're involved somehow on every turn. And it's like, wow, I had no idea that we just spent 3 hours playing a game, because it didn't feel that way. So that's nice.
Yeah,
but
like Nemesis, which is an extremely long game, but it can be played like that.
Yeah.
And you just don't notice time passing, especially me, because I usually die on the third turn or something and have to wait for the rest of the group to finish the game.
This is actually not true. He's the one to win all the time, actually. No way he's saying that.
He's just trying to make me feel better, because my wife beats me most of the time. Now, my wife is a math teacher, so any game that involves figuring out the game of scoring the maximum amount of points, she can just do it like that. And I'm just like, you can kill me, you can beat me by 100 points. I'm having fun. Like, I'm that guy who's like, this is so fun. If I can convince my family to play, and I'm the last, I have the lowest score, that's fine with me. So my wife, the other way, she wants to win.
I'm actually trying to be this person who is so good about losing, but still, every time he beats me, I'm like, okay, but still, I'm upset a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is how it is said usually.
No, for me, it's just it takes me a certain amount of effort to concentrate and make up a strategy or a tactic, and when it doesn't work, I feel a little bit upset. Like, I spent so much time figuring this out and I'm so proud of myself, but still I lose.
I will be honest, it takes some effort for everyone. to plan the strategy. But it's true. Yeah, it's very learning how to lose is another thing that I really like about board games.
Yes.
Because the process is always much more precious than the result in most cases, if it's not Monopoly. I mean, this is the game where the result matters more.
Yeah, that experience, the experience of the game, is also at the top of my list. Like, what are the interactions with the other players like? Was there backstabbing in the game, but it was fun because of the way it's built into the game? Did it cause players to discuss and really strategize? Did it create conversations? Did it create memorable moments in the game that was like, remember last year when we played this and you did that? Oh yeah, like that's special. And not every game can do that in a big wow kind of way, but I think the games that we love do that to some extent, and I think that's very important.
Yeah,
like every film is a story, and every game is a story too. Yeah, it can be good or bad, with a happy ending or not, but it becomes a part of your life, and this is what
it's so precious about games.
Yeah, no one can take it from us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so another question that we have, considering priorities, maybe more of an accessibility related question, but you are a colorblind player, right?
I am. I'm red-green colorblind. So that means I do see colors, but certain shades of red and certain shades of green I can't see. So if there's a purple and a blue art on a card, those sometimes are very difficult to see. Also light pinks, dark greens. These are all things that are difficult for me to see. And so I really do appreciate when people put time and effort into adding a texture or keeping the colors within that seeable range for me. But there are some really nice colorblind friendly innovations. Is it Knar? I think it's Knar. It's just a nice example by Pandasaurus. They use that, I think it's color add system, which is like a franchisable system, which looked way too complicated at first. And I was like, I don't want to learn this. But then when I learned that several games use the same system, it was like, okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes to learn it. And it's really intuitive because, you know, blue has one mark, and then red has one mark, and then purple it shares blue, and so you can kind of see, oh, that's between blue and red. So I really do appreciate when publishers make an effort to be inclusive with that, because it does make things difficult often. There's certain pawn colors that I always try to play yellow, and then if there's an orange or sometimes I have to request certain colors not be played by the other players, because otherwise I'm always thinking that my pawn, my meeples are theirs. So there's some amount of control you can do if you're not playing at a full player count. But yeah, it's an issue. It's definitely an issue that can dampen the enjoyment of a game if I'm spending a lot of my time trying to figure out which color is which.
I see. And do you think board game creators pay enough attention to making games user-friendly for colorblind players in general? And what suggestions would you offer for improvement or better accessibility?
I think it's gotten really a lot better recently, just in the last few years. That color add is one thing. Adding a pattern or texture, it takes longer to read, honestly, but it's good to have. I just played a game the other night where it was really hard for me to see the colors, and there was a slight attempt to put a pattern in there, but it was so small, and it really lessened my enjoyment of the game, which unfortunately I wish I was able to keep it to myself, but it lessened the other people's enjoyment of the game too, because I'm saying, which color is that? Which color is that? Like it affects not only the colorblind player, but affects everyone else's experience at the table too, when they have to keep asking, or I keep moving my wife's meeple. She's like, that's mine. So what else? Was there anything else in your question that I didn't answer?
Some suggestions.
So I'll mention two things. The first is the art. Like, do whatever you want to make the art look good, right? Use whatever colors. If you have art where I can't see the colors, that doesn't matter. Like that, make it beautiful in the way you want, because my enjoyment isn't affected by a problem with the art. It's just affected by the mechanics, the colors of the mechanics. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, I totally understand that certain themes have certain color palettes, and sometimes I can't see those as well. but like I'm not going to be the person that says, hey, you need to make this friendlier for, the 5% of the 3% of the population who can't see it. Like I totally get that. And I want you to make a product that looks good. So I understand that. But like sometimes just the icons, the iconography, and there's
Definitely.
those can be more friendly, or add the texture or whatever that is. So I think most of I guess I can't speak for other colorblind folk, but I certainly understand that you want to make your game look as good to as many people as possible. And if it means making it look less good to make it look good for like these 3% of people who can't see it better, like that's just it's a balance. It's hard. It's hard, and I certainly understand that.
Yeah, we try to fix it in two ways. One of them is a color palette, and this is where we are not that good at, probably. And another one is recognition of the symbols themselves. They should be recognizable and different from each other. And usually we look at them from the distance. While play testing, we pay a lot of attention to that. And I believe this way it can get more accessible to different groups of players, such as those who cannot read very tiny text written on the card. It's another.
I'm in that category now too, where I'm getting older and I can't see the small text as well. But yeah, it's something that I know you guys have to take into account. Iconography is so important. Like I know there's tons of games that I've never noticed aren't colorblind friendly because the iconography is so clear, right? And so it's like I didn't even think about being colorblind because I wasn't like, oh, what's that? Just the icons were big enough. They made it clear. They looked different. One's a star, one's a triangle. So that's a really good way, is just make that iconography clear and not completely color dependent.
All right, the final part is the Blitz. Short questions from us, short answers from you. Of course, you can clarify your opinion in a longer way if needed.
Yeah, you can elaborate on anything.
That's all right, but the questions will be pretty short.
Okay, I love it. This is great.
So, stability and comfort, or something new and unexpected?
New and unexpected.
Quick game or a long session?
Quick game. Medium.
Plastic miniatures or wooden components?
Wooden components.
Yes.
Yeah.
So our new game contains a lot of them.
Yeah, we're also fans.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, cards or dice?
Ooh.
A painful question, we know. Yeah. Black core cards, just imagine them, or custom-made dice with engraving.
I think cards, and I don't care so much about how beautiful the dice are. I just like throwing them. So if we're talking about quality and art, cards. But if it's fun, it's still cards.
Still cards.
Barely.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm also a card guy, I would say. All right.
Me too. Okay, but it depends on the table.
I don't think
it
so.
depends on the table. It depends on the table surface, because sometimes I really like how when you throw dice, how they sound like on a table surface.
True.
So it can beat cards for me. But if it's not that pleasant of a sound, for example, with this table we have now, it's not a very pleasant sound when you throw dice. So here I would prefer Probably cards.
Cards can contain whole worlds, you know, with the text and the art, and that's something that dice just can't do, but dice are fun to throw.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have sound. Yeah, they produce some sound. This is also a pretty important thing. Okay, so push your luck or perfect information?
Push your luck.
All right, I see. Euro games or Ameritrash?
Euro games.
All right.
Not all the
right.
time. Some of my favorite games are Ameritrash, but in general, Euro games.
I think that is pretty much it.
Great.
It's been awesome to have a conversation with you. So many topics we've covered. Many of those, I believe, can be very interesting for the gaming community. At least we hope so. Thank you for your time, and yeah, we will be checking out what is coming out from you on your multiple accounts and in different spheres of your life. It's so nice when a person is into so many things.
Yeah.
I enjoy a lot of different things. Variety is important. That's one of the reasons it's so great. I love playing board games. There's such a variety of experiences out there. So, yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
If you enjoy this conversation as much as we did, consider subscribing to this channel so not to miss new episodes.
And stay tuned for more info about our newest deck building game we mentioned in this video, Siclen Valley.